Are you sure you know what the gold rush really was? That it was just crowds of poor people driven mad by greed, running to search for gold in the sand? That's exactly how the 19th century has been shown to us. Convenient, picturesque, almost cinematic. But if you look a little longer at old photographs, that facade begins to crack. Too many people, too much dirt, too many already finished buildings where, according to the official story, there was nothing just yesterday. Too much gold that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Now imagine for a second that the gold rush wasn't a search for wealth, but a cleanup of traces. Not romance, but the dismantling of ruins. Not the beginning of a new world, but the excavation of an old one that had perished not long before. Then everything changes. Then prospectors turn not into heroes, but into workers in someone else's operation. Then gold becomes not a natural gift, but the remnants of a former civilization. Then the fires, construction, migrations, sudden inventions, and even rewritten history begin to form a single chain. And the most unsettling thing here isn't even that the 19th century may have been shown to us completely differently than it was. The most unsettling part is something else. If that world was indeed being cleared after a catastrophe, then we aren't living in an age of progress. We're living among the aftermath. And perhaps we're still using what wasn't built by us. Right where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. It all starts with an image we've been taught since childhood. A bearded man in a wet shirt, a pan in his hands, a river, sand, a few tents. We've been led to believe that's what the gold rush looked like. As if people left home, family, their familiar lives, and went chasing a dream. Someone, most lost, and history later turned it into a beautiful legend of risk, courage, and hope. A convenient story, simple, sticky. It settles in your mind right away and hardly invites questions. But as soon as we stop looking at the 19th century through textbook eyes, that image starts to fall apart. Because in real photographs, there's often no sense of romance. You don't feel the light madness of fortune hunters. You feel heavy, endless, mechanical work. Not a search, not an adventure, but mass earth-moving. As if thousands of people aren't looking for a lucky find, but carrying out someone's task, the meaning of which wasn't fully explained to them. And here appears the first crack in the official version. If it was just a thirst for easy gold, why does everything look so organized and on such a scale? Why are entire territories excavated almost industrially? Why do we see in photos not just streams and pans, but ditches, embankments, complex sluices, huge wheels, water systems, diversions, piled and recut earth? There's too much system here for spontaneous madness, too much discipline for a group of dreamers, too much complex infrastructure for a poor crowd. We've been taught to see the 19th century as an era of naive people with primitive tools. But the photos themselves often say otherwise. They show a world where someone is in a great hurry to strip away layer after layer across vast areas. And the key point, they're doing it not in one place, but simultaneously in different points across the planet. And when the same scenario repeats again and again, that's no longer coincidence. It's a pattern. So the question must be asked differently. Not why were people searching for gold, but why were so many people simultaneously made to dig the earth? Because if you change the question itself, the whole picture changes. And behind that first crack, the next one opens. If it wasn't just crowd madness, then who launched this giant wave and why? When we're told about the gold rush, it's usually presented as a local outbreak of greed. As if gold was found somewhere, word spread, people dropped everything, and the race began. It sounds plausible until you start looking at the map more broadly. And then an uncomfortable thing suddenly becomes clear. Similar processes erupt not in one corner of the world, but almost synchronously in different regions. California, Australia, the Klondike, Siberia, different countries, different authorities, different distances. Yet the scenario seems the same. People abandon their familiar lives and rush to hard-to-reach areas. Newspapers hype the topic. Temporary camps appear, and then suddenly, entire towns. Companies emerge, officials, new rules for land and resources. A bustle begins that looks much less like a popular surge and more like a managed campaign. Too much repeats. The mechanisms of engagement work too similarly, and authorities, banks, intermediaries, and transport kick in too timely. If it's just a spontaneous thirst for profit, why do state structures adapt to it so quickly? Why does the financial system instantly know how to receive and digest new volumes of gold? Why do trade, taxes, land, licenses, and force-based control appear almost immediately? There's too much readiness here for pure chance. It feels as if the crowd only looks chaotic from the outside. Inside, it's moving along a pre-marked corridor. It's at such moments that it's especially important not to argue over details, but to look at the rhythm of events. First, a signal appears at the right point. Then masses go there. Then the economic and administrative network expands sharply. After that, the area changes beyond recognition. And then, when the main thing has already been removed, another stage begins, formalizing a new version of the past. Where there were strange excavations yesterday, today there's already a history of founding. Where suspicious ruins stood yesterday, tomorrow there's already the pride of young towns. There's something frighteningly familiar in this rhythm. It resembles not a random surge, but the launch of an operation under the cover of a beautiful dream of wealth. Because a dream is the best way to make thousands of people voluntarily do hard, dangerous, and dirty work. You don't have to drive them by force if you can give them hope. And if that hope was bait, then the main question is no longer about the people. The main question becomes about the land they were digging up. What exactly was hidden beneath that layer of dirt, requiring such masses? If you start carefully examining old gold rush photos, a feeling of strangeness arises that's hard to shake. The official version speaks of wilderness, untouched territories, riverbeds and mountain streams where prospectors washed gold-bearing sand. But the images themselves often show something quite different. We see not a virgin landscape, but land that looks as if it had already been ground, broken, filled, and reopened before. Instead of a natural riverbank, strange cuts. Instead of clean bedrock, a mix of clay, stone, debris, sometimes something suspiciously resembling construction waste. Here, the eye catches a brick-like texture. There, fragments resembling ceramics or worked stone. And then an uncomfortable thought arises. What if people weren't digging in nature, but in a layer that once covered an already existing environment? This is where official history usually suggests we stop thinking. We're told it's just soil, just sediment, just traces of hard labor. But the longer you look, the harder it becomes to accept such simplicity. Because just soil too often looks like the ground-up remains of something larger. As if beneath the prospector's feet lay not pristine earth, but a compressed mixture of a destroyed world. Not a riverbed, but a forgotten surface of a former life. And here, everything suddenly shifts perspective. Then the people with shovels and sieves no longer resemble hunters for a vein. They begin to look like those who are removing layer after layer, not of natural rock, but of debris. Workers clearing away the aftermath. They themselves may not understand what exactly they are uncovering. They may have been told there was gold underground, and that wasn't necessarily a lie. But in that case, the gold would not be a miraculous nugget, but part of what remained after destruction. The most unsettling thing about this version isn't even the version itself, but how easily it explains the visual strangeness of the era. Because then many things fall into place. Why the landscape looks like a wound, why they dig so wide, why walls, foundations, ledges, straight lines sometimes seem to grow ready-made from the mud. And why, in the same areas, signs appear so quickly not of taming emptiness, but of returning to a place where life had once already existed. And if beneath the layer there really were not just rocks, but the remains of a former environment, then the next step suggests itself. It means cities once existed over this land, and possibly not small settlements, but something far more substantial. One of the most uncomfortable questions of the 19th century sounds laughably simple. Where did the cities come from? Not in the future, not a generation later, but almost immediately. We're told the gold rush spawned growth points, that streets, shops, banks, hotels, theaters quickly arose in place of tents. Formally, it sounds neat, but when you start comparing the claimed timeframes with the actual appearance of early cities, the picture stops being convincing. Take San Francisco, for instance. By textbook logic, it should be a young, hastily growing frontier city. But in old panoramas, we often see a completely different image. Dense development, solid buildings, symmetrical streets, stone facades that more closely resemble the legacy of an already established urban culture than the result of feverish construction on the edge of the world. Too fast, too well built, too mature for a place that was officially almost empty not long before. And it's not just one city. Similar discrepancies appear in different locations. Young cities look as if they already have something to remember, as if they didn't grow from scratch but were reoccupied. Where are the traces of total construction? Where are the endless brickworks? Where is the chaos of hoisting mechanisms, scaffolding, warehouses, workshops that should have accompanied the birth of major centers? Sometimes this simply isn't visible on the scale that the legend of sudden growth itself demands. Official history responds in its usual way. People were energetic, gold provided money, everything was built quickly and boldly. But this version doesn't hold up well when you look not at a single house, but at the urban volume as a whole. Because it's not about one facade. It's about the feeling of a ready-made environment, as if someone arrived not in an empty field, but in a place that already had structure, a center, an axis, a form, and sometimes an architectural language clearly unlike the improvisation of prospectors. And here, an even more uncomfortable hypothesis is born. What if no one in the 19th century truly built some of these cities? What if they were rather cleared, remodeled, repopulated, adapted to new signs and new legends? Then the strange timelines, the feeling of foreign monumentality, and that very contrast between the rough-hewn population of the era and the overly serious urban shell become more understandable. But if the cities were indeed not new but inherited, then something must have happened after which they ended up empty, buried, or half destroyed. And then we run into the main turning point of the entire story. The question is no longer about gold or even about cities. The question is what could have so abruptly ended the previous world. There is a detail that becomes impossible to unsee once you notice it. It's the first floors of buildings, as if sunk into the ground. Windows that have become semi-basements, doorways seemingly cut off at the bottom, stairs that don't start where they should. We're used to considering such things trivial, a quirk of old cities, the result of cultural layer. But when viewed on a large scale, a feeling arises that this isn't about the slow accumulation of dust, but the trace of a major event. Too many cities around the world bear the same sign. Too often, buildings look as if their lower parts were buried abruptly, not gradually. And if you apply this view to gold rush territories, everything becomes even stranger. Then the mass digging of earth can be seen as a late phase of work after a catastrophe, not as the beginning of space development, but as the clearing of a huge debris field that covered the former environment. Official history likes to file such phenomena in different folders. Here, a fire. There, a flood. Here, redevelopment. Here they raise the street level. There they raise the pavement. In isolation, the explanations sound tolerable, but when the same effect repeats again and again in different countries, With different architecture and different political environments, you can't help but think not of local causes, but of a systemic trace, as if the world experienced not one isolated incident, but a common upheaval. And then the gold rush unexpectedly begins to look not like the mad start of a new world, but like a stage after the collapse of an old one. Someone arrived where buildings already stood, where there were already streets, warehouses, utilities, perhaps even industrial zones. But all of it was buried, shattered, partially dead. And it took thousands of hands to uncover, haul out, sift, sort, remove layer after layer of what remained after the cataclysm. This version is frightening because it assembles disparate oddities into a single picture too well. Buried floors, suspicious soil, ready-made cities, a sudden influx of people. All of it no longer looks like a series of happy coincidences, but like a sequence following a major break. And if so, then gold was not the goal in the usual sense. It was the prize left in the ruins, not a miracle of nature, but a trophy from a destroyed world. And when gold becomes a trophy, the role of those who mined it changes too. They are no longer lucky seekers of fortune, they are labor. And it is precisely this turn that makes the whole picture truly harsh. There's a very convenient myth that the 19th century prospector was a free man who chose the risk himself, went after his dream himself, and built his own happiness with a shovel and perseverance. That image sells well. It makes the era seem heroic. But if you look at the gold rush as a mass clearing operation, this romantic portrait fades almost immediately. Because then what we see are not free adventurers, but cheap, motivated, easily replaceable labor. It's almost the perfect scheme. You don't need to maintain an army of forced laborers if you can infect people with the hope of quick riches. You don't need to explain the real purpose of the work if it's enough to say there's gold under their feet. You don't need to build a punitive system if the crowd will rush to where luck was promised. Greed, desperation, need, rumors, and legends do more for the organizers than any order. And the output is exactly what's needed. Thousands of hands, day after day, shoveling earth and pulling out everything of value. Then the very structure of the fever reads differently. Camps appear, then collection points, buying stations, processing sites, then financial links, then transport, then law and force control. All of it looks like a service superstructure over the enormous work of resource extraction. And gold here is just the tip. Because if ruins lay beneath a layer, they weren't just extracting precious metal. They were taking out everything that could have value: parts, materials, artifacts, mechanisms, any traces of the past that could be used or hidden. The most frightening thing in this picture is that many participants may not have understood their place at all. They thought they were seeking fortune, but in fact they were dismantling someone else's world. They might have considered themselves pioneers, though they were latecomers to an already existing but destroyed stage. They were given a simple legend: you're going for gold. But the real logic of the process could have been different. You're going where the top layer needs to be removed, and everything valuable extracted before anyone asks too many questions. And if you adopt this lens even for a minute, it immediately becomes clearer why the gold rush so resembles a massive cleanup after a disaster. Why there's so much dirt and so little real romance. Why the outcome isn't just nuggets found, but radically altered spaces. And why after this phase, a new one so often begins. The phase of erasing traces. But before talking about how evidence was hidden, another heavy question must be asked. Where did such volumes of gold even come from, if official mining methods seem too weak for such results? Here, official history starts creaking especially loudly. We're told gold was extracted through heavy manual labor. Panned, washed, sifted, broken, veins sought, grains and nuggets pulled out. It all sounds plausible when we're talking about local finds. But as soon as the real volumes of gold that entered the 19th century global economy come into the conversation, an unpleasant feeling of mathematical mismatch arises. Too much metal, too fast. Too confidently did financial centers accept this flow, as if they knew in advance it would come. An ordinary person with a pan can't provide that scale. Even thousands of such people, it's debatable. Yes, one could say there were artels, companies, machinery, scope. But then, the gold rush itself stops being a story about individual luck and turns into a well-organized extraction of large reserves. And that changes everything. Where could so much gold have come from? If we don't limit ourselves to the usual version, a harsh answer suggests itself. It wasn't just natural gold. It could have been metal already once used in products, coatings, decorative elements, technical components, luxury items, religious and state objects. That is, gold wasn't born before the prospector's eyes. It was returning to circulation from what had already been created, accumulated, and belonged to another world. This shift explains a lot. Why there was so much gold, why it so quickly became a foundation for banks, reserves, and new monetary mechanisms, why the 19th century financial system strengthened so confidently as if it had at its disposal a stock that can't be explained by crowd luck alone. Because if the gold rush was a phase of redistributing already existing wealth, then banks and states weren't witnesses to a miracle, but the ultimate recipients of the result. And here the logic itself sounds especially unpleasant. Millions dig, a few get rich. Huge masses go bankrupt or disappear into the shadows. And the main gold settles not in prospectors' pockets, but in centers of power. A very familiar model. Below, excitement and sweat. Above, concentration of resources. And if this resource was lifted not from virgin nature, but from a perished civilization, then the 19th century becomes not an era of growth, but an era of large-scale inheritance capture. But this version has another support, not just numbers. It's also supported by the very appearance of the technology that accompanied the extraction. Because what we see in old photographs too often doesn't resemble the naive world of artisans. And this is the next layer that can't be passed over in silence. When you look at old images of gold mining, especially larger operations, another feeling of mismatch quickly arises. We're asked to believe that before us are mainly former peasants, poor people, clerks, fugitives from boring lives. In short, people whom gold uprooted. But next to them we see systems of sluices, pumps, wheels, drainage, undermining, washing and processing that look far more serious than a simple set of random tools. Hydraulic mining looks especially strange. According to the official version, it's simply an efficient way to extract gold. But if you look at the result, a completely different association arises. It's not a careful search for precious sand. It's the large-scale washing away of entire slopes. As if the task wasn't to carefully extract the valuable, but to quickly destroy a complex layer structure, grind it up, and turn it into a formless mass from which the needed could then be selected. Such technology resembles erasure more than extraction. It's here that the idea of found, not created, technology starts working especially strongly. Because too much in this infrastructure looks as if it wasn't invented on site from scratch, but adapted, restored, crudely repurposed for current needs. Yesterday, it could have been part of another system. Today, already a barbaric tool for dismantling ruins, like a primitive user taking a complex device and using it at a minimal level, not understanding the original logic. This also explains the strange visual language of the era. On one hand, there is dirt, chaos, people in rags. On the other, there is the presence of engineering that is clearly larger than the workers themselves. It's as if the population does not match the environment it finds itself in. They did not create this material complexity. They merely operate within it, often crudely and blindly. And in this picture, the prospector finally ceases to be a hero of progress. He becomes part of the mechanism for extraction and destruction. And when destruction occurs on such a scale, the inevitable question arises: what is done afterward with what remains on the surface? What happens to the cities, buildings, traces, and empty shells after the main substance has been removed? And here the next act of this story takes the stage: the great fires that all too often arrive precisely when they are most convenient. There is a pattern here that is difficult to call a cozy coincidence. In many places where the feverish phase of development, extraction, growth, and redistribution has passed, large fires follow. Official history likes to explain them simply: a lamp here, a mistake there, dry weather in one place, dense construction in another. Fires, they say, were common for the time. And individually, such explanations work. But when the same disasters befall cities again and again, precisely at moments when too many strange questions have already accumulated, the coincidence begins to smell unnatural. The most important thing is not even that the cities burned. What matters is that they burned as if too conveniently. After extraction, after processing, after the influx of money, after the reconfiguration of space, fire in such cases becomes an almost perfect eraser. It removes documents, old structures, inconvenient materials, traces of the previous layer. It allows for rebuilding afterward while simultaneously rewriting what was here before. After a great fire, it is easier to start a new chapter and call it modern development. But here a physical question arises again. We are often asked to believe that fire nearly turned entire urban structures, containing much brick, stone, and heavy elements into dust. And that is not so simple. Yes, fire can destroy wood, floors, building interiors, roofs, warehouses, residential quarters. But when a city afterwards seems to gain the right to start with a clean slate, one can't help but think that fire was not only a disaster, but also a tool of transition. A tool that cleared the ground for a new version of reality. Viewed in this light, the great fires become not a random misfortune, but the final act of an operation. First, open the layer, then extract the gold and everything valuable. Then use the ready-made or half-buried cities, and then destroy what too clearly reminds of the past, so that future generations are left with no unnecessary questions. Very convenient, too convenient. And if we accept this at least as a working hypothesis, the next problem opens up. To pull off something like this required not just workers' hands and fire, it required incredible logistics. It required feeding, transporting, housing, and supplying huge masses of people where, according to the official version, there was almost nothing. And it is precisely here that the old story begins to collapse even further. Try for a moment to forget the beautiful legends and just count. Not gold, people, food, clothing, tools, animals, carts, building materials, medicine, barrels, planks, nails, flour, salt, kerosene, everything needed by tens of thousands of people if they suddenly appear in a remote area in the mid-19th century. And then a very difficult question arises. How exactly did all of this get there on such a scale and with such speed? History loves to talk about brave settlers, but much less often shows the logistical side of the process in detail. Yet it is precisely this side that is decisive here, because romance ends where supply begins. If a city's population multiplies in a short time, where are the traces of the massive deliveries? Where are the endless warehouses? Where is the detailed picture of the supply line, without which such population explosions simply cannot survive? A city of tens of thousands in a harsh, difficult environment does not run on enthusiasm alone. The more closely you look at this side of the question, the stronger a strange thought emerges, as if a significant part of the basic environment was already in place, not necessarily in perfect condition, but in a state sufficient for rapid settlement. And then the picture becomes more logical. People do not arrive in emptiness, but in a space where a framework already exists. Roads, preparations, buildings, warehouses, remnants of infrastructure, possibly even supplies. Their task is not to build a world from scratch, but to occupy, clear, repurpose, and integrate into a new system. This explains both the sharpness of growth and the feeling of unnatural maturity in some cities, and the fact that official history often speaks of the beginning of life where visually it feels not like a beginning, but a late stage, as if someone is deliberately telling us a story of settlement so that we do not ask about the origin of the stage itself. And yet the stage sometimes looks too ready for those who only arrived yesterday. In this case, the gold rush turns out to be not only an operation to extract value, but also an operation to populate a new order into a cleared space. People were directed to places where they were not just to dig, but to solidify a new reality, to give new names, new signs, new documents, new habits. And here another troubling layer emerges. Did all these people even have a deep past? Or did part of the 19th century population truly appear as if they arose too suddenly? There is one detail rarely discussed seriously because it immediately leads into a very uncomfortable zone. It is the strange feeling of demographic artificiality in the mid-19th century. The population grows, masses move, workers' hands appear for wars, construction, extraction, development. All this is presented as a natural process. But if you look closely at the overall rhythm, it sometimes seems as if the world was not just growing, but being urgently restocked with people. Hence the attention to shelters, barracks, orphanages, large groups of children and adolescents in old photographs. Of course, officially, everything has an explanation: poverty, illness, war, orphanhood. And part of these explanations is surely real, but the sheer mass and uniformity sometimes leave a strange aftertaste, as if we are looking not just at a difficult era, but at a period when society was being reassembled in accelerated mode. When a person was given not only work and a roof, but also a new biography. In this picture, the gold rush takes on another function. It is not only about clearing and collecting resources. It is a way to occupy people, distribute them, tie them to a place, integrate them into the economy of the new world. A person without a solid past, without long family memory, without deep roots is an ideal participant in such a system. It is easier to sell them the legend that everything begins right now, that before them there was almost emptiness here, that they are the first true builders. They cannot compare. They have nothing to check against. That is precisely why the 19th century so often appears not merely as an era of progress, but of retraining. People were, as it were, simultaneously herded into schools, barracks, new labor regimes, new laws, and new notions of normality. They were taught to live in a freshly approved version of the world. And if that is the case, then the gold rush is merely one of the backdrops for a great reset. A very loud, very dirty, very profitable one, but still just part of the script. Then comes the most important part. Because if people were truly being integrated into a new order, it means they were given something else along with work and daily life. They were given an explanation of the past. They were given a history in which everything looked logical, sequential, and without too many dangerous gaps. That is, they were given a new foundation for memory. And here we approach the final, most painful part. If you line up all the oddities of the 19th century, a picture emerges that makes one uneasy. Mass excavations under the guise of mining, ready-made cities where there should have been emptiness, layers of earth that resemble not nature, but the ground-up residue of a former world. Vast quantities of gold, all too convenient for the new financial order. Fires that erase traces. A suddenly disciplined population, quickly integrated into schools, armies, factories, and a new historical logic. All of this fits not the legend of progress, but the script of a reset, all too well. Then the 19th century ceases to be an era of beginnings. It becomes an era of formalizing the consequences. The old world is already broken. Its remnants are cleared away. Its wealth is extracted. Its infrastructure is repurposed. Its meanings are renamed. And then, on top of this, a new history is laid down. Neat, convenient, instructive. A history in which prospectors were romantics, cities were built almost miraculously, gold was born from sand, and everything great around us was the work of people who lacked even proper tools. And it is here that the heaviest question arises. If the gold rush truly was not just extraction, but also a cleanup operation, then what else remains beneath our everyday reality? How much of our cities is someone else's inheritance, passed off as our own? How many buildings, systems, roads, hydraulic structures, and engineering solutions do we consider the fruit of the history we know, when in fact they are older than that very version of history itself? And most importantly, how many times has the world already been through such a reset? Because if a society has already undergone a memory rewrite once, then the very technology of this process was perfected long ago. First, a catastrophe or its aftermath. Then the gathering of resources. Then a new order. Then a new school, a new map, new pride, new heroes. And the previous layer gradually recedes into the realm of mockery, oddities, urban legends, and conspiracy theories. It's a very convenient way to make even obvious traces invisible. And perhaps that is precisely why the history of the gold rush so stubbornly remains a beautiful fairy tale about brave men and luck. Because behind this tale may lie not just an economic episode, but one of the key moments in a great civilizational reset. A moment when millions of people, with their hands, pickaxes, water, and sieves, helped dismantle a perished world, without even understanding the scale of what they were participating in. If after this video you're left with a feeling that the 19th century is far from simple, then we're moving in the right direction. Write in the comments which detail seems the strangest to you: the ready-made cities, the buried floors, the volumes of gold, or the series of great fires. Give it a like, subscribe to the Lost Empires channel, and be sure to hit the bell. We have many more topics ahead, after which familiar history will look completely different.